Welcome to this edition of Dufferin Life. I'm your host, Tina Avery. Thank you so much for tuning in today. So I love to bring in people who have interesting stories. And this particular lady that's joining me today has a very interesting and inspiring story of the entrepreneurial thought. So anyways, joining me today, we have Julie Thorogood Burnett. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I wanted to bring you on. We've known each other a little while.
Yep.
And I've always found your story very fascinating. So let's start with, what you started doing when you started your career. How did you start out?
Oh, there's a long journey there. I always went to work for very big corporations. I worked for Dell, McDonald's, Zellers, which is coming back, and then decided that I no longer wanted to work for someone else. It just quite wasn't working with our lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And I started a marketing agency. And then went and partnered with Jess at Green Monkey Creative, and we ran that for about 4 years. But during lockdown, I decided to plant some lavender in my back garden, and I don't have a green thumb. Like, we've been on this farm for my husband; it's like 5th generation.
Okay,
and and here we are.
So you started to plant lavender with the thought that you were going to do something with the lavender, or just that you wanted to?
We were home, right? And normally we traveled a lot, so I thought, let's put some lavender in the garden. And my lovely friend Jamie Richards at Hereward Farms, I'm like, where do I get lavender from? And he goes, are you going in on something? And I said, I don't know. Let's see what happens. So now we've gone from 40 plants in 3 years to 6,000 plants.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it's a little...
So it's become more than just a hobby and planting something.
Yes, because it took off. And then I went to my husband in tears one October, whatever year that was after the lockdown, and said, I can't do both anymore. I can't run half a company and this business that has just taken off from nowhere. I can't do both. So we made the decision. I sold my half of the agency, and now I do it full time. So
you've gone from the executive corporate life
to farm life.
That's phenomenal, because that's a big jump. That's not like a, like, hey, let's, I opened a marketing firm, maybe I should get into radio commercials, or you know what I mean, or like doing something, or voiceovers.
Yeah, like a branch from that. And I think for me, going back to what I went to school for, because I went for fashion, I went for marketing, and I never really did anything in fashion. And so and we had cosmetology, and so part of that was like, I'm getting back into what I liked, but there wasn't really an opportunity when I was 18 to really get into that or want to be in that. So.
Well, I mean, that's the thing too. I mean, I went to school for marketing, and everyone, people branched out to advertising, whatever, public relations, all these different things that you had a chance to. And you when you get out of school, you kind of take what you can to get that job and get that experience, so that you can actually eventually have enough experience to get paid to do what you really want to do, or so there's a whole stepping stone process of where you're going once you're done these things, for sure.
Most definitely, and we're a little bit different, because we're not we don't charge people to come to our lavender farm. We want people to enjoy nature, because our focus is on our products, which we sell across North America. So that was always my focus. Was always the products, not the agritourism is a small part of our business, but it's still a good part of our business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and are you were you a specific fan of lavender? Like, I'm just curious how you picked lavender, and
so it's kind of, I never really told anyone, but I was like, I've never been to a lavender farm.
Okay.
So there's nothing magical, but it's kind of the background. I remember going to a medium, and she said, you're gonna have a peony farm, and I'm like, what? Okay. And so we joke about it now. I message her, I'm like, you were wrong about the flower. So I don't, I honestly, it was a whim. Like, there was nothing, and I went back to school online to learn all the things I kind of forgotten about, or things, and it has been, like, we've made mistakes, and we've grown, and we've learned, but I think the benefit for me was that background of marketing.
Yes.
Because I don't think it would be where it is today without, and probably 70% of my time is spent marketing.
Well, and I think that's it too. Like, people who own companies and start their own companies, if they don't have a marketing background, you hire somebody to do that marketing for you.
Right.
But you've got that solid background, especially in social media, and you're very prominent in social media as well.
Yeah.
Just to have that behind you. I mean, even for my smaller, like my event planning business, I have the marketing background, so I know where I want to market, how I want to do it, and what my plans are. Whereas when you own a business, you're making, I don't know, apple pie. You don't necessarily know how you want to market it, or what the best way to market apple pie is.
Yeah, because and when I speak at events, when people are like, I don't even know where to start, and I'm like, it's tough, and I can tell you where to start, but it's a lot of time. Like you can pay someone to do it, but are they going to want to, like, are they going to do it the way I couldn't pay someone to do what I do?
Yes.
Right? Because a lot of it can
time
be
consuming.
Yes. Like I spent the last 2 days like working on Pinterest, and you get sucked in, and it's like, oh, well, no, I've gone down that rabbit hole. So,
and there are many rabbit holes in social media. Like you can get, doing social media, and you're just scrolling, whether you're looking at a competitor, whether you're looking at whatever, and then all of a sudden you're like, and something, of course, because everything just pops up, and then you're like, oh, let's go over here, and then by the time you're done, you're like, do I have my competitive analysis of what they do on social media,
right,
in order to move forward? And hopefully you have, or you haven't got lost looking at,
the engagement, right? Because it's not just posting; it's having those conversations, and a lot of my like Instagram's really big for us. And having those relationships with my audience, because they'll come into the store and they'll be like, oh, and I'm like, oh, what's your username, right? Like, because they talk to people all the time. Like, I'm on all the time.
Oh.
And that's...
Okay, so you started with a few plants.
Yes.
And what made you expand? Like, what made you think I can do this and
my husband, it's his fault. So when when I researched what products to make, where we decided to infuse the lavender to make a skincare line with the all the benefits of lavender in, not just adding essential oil, we sold out. And at this point, I was in our basement. Like, it was all set up, and I was like, this is a cute little hobby. It's really neat. And we sold out, and he's like, let's go big. And I'm like, what? And he goes, well, we have that riding paddock. It's 2 acres. Let's go. And I go, wow, well, how much? And of course, he's an engineer, so he has little calculations. And he's like, well, let's do 3,000. I was like, I was terrified. Like, I was like, this isn't, like, I didn't want to start up a new company.
Right.
I knew I had an exit plan from Green Monkey, that I wanted to get out eventually and retire early. Yeah, that didn't start.
You're too young to retire anyway.
Yeah, but I wanted to slow down a little bit. So it was either sink or swim, and I put it off ordering for probably about a month. And then I said, are you really all in on this? And I think he was anxious to get back into the tractor, and really, because he handles all the operations, he handles anything financial on that end. So it really became, because we both have our separate companies, you couldn't talk about each other's company, right? Like, you could offer advice, but we were very protective of our companies. So this was kind of neat that the empire kind of came together, and we've found our niche of what you do and what you do well, and away we go. So, and I'm not I don't even know how to drive a tractor. Still don't. But I am the one out cutting, and I'm weeding, and I'm doing all those things. Like, I still touch everything.
Right.
Which limits my time for a lot of things like social. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk about the delve into products. So you started with something simple.
Yeah, four products.
Okay.
And now we're at 25.
25 products.
Yeah.
So, let's just talk about the benefits of lavender. Like, what can lavender do to help people?
So it is a antioxidant. It also is very healing for your skin. It's aromatherapy. So they use a lot of times in cancer treatment. They're doing some testing where they put lavender pads on people. So, but you only have a short period where you stop sensing that smell. So they're doing some testing now of how lavender can help cancer patients, which is pretty amazing. So it's good for, I have clients, and it's really, so I have to be very careful because I know what it does, but Health Canada doesn't let us.
Okay.
Right? Because it's not a drug.
Right.
But it does, like when I've had clients that have eczema and it's cleared it up, or psoriasis, burns. I have people writing me all the time. They're like, I fell down. I had a friend that fell down and broke her wrist and mashed up her face. And I'm like, put that oil on her face. And then she shows me 2 days later and there's nothing left. So it's such simple ingredients. It's just all the vitamins, because we only use 3 types of oil. We keep everything very simple, very pure and organic. We don't have an organic label. That's a whole other. And I'm not really sure people believe it anymore. Like, it's a tough, a tough sell. So we do everything organically. Like, we don't use chemicals. We don't do anything. Everything we get is from Canada, which is tough at times, especially after our whole, I hate the word COVID, but I mean, we're still dealing with fulfillment issues and whatnot. But I think I really wanted to move away from everyone thinking it's like their grandmother's lavender. So right, like the Yardley, the little and nothing against Yardley, but we were so used to that. So it is a learning for our clients. Our stuff doesn't really smell super strong.
Right. Well, I'll be honest. Lavender is not my favorite scent. Like I've got some in my garden.
Yep.
I'm not going to start with one plant and go to 6,000.
Yeah.
I don't have that kind of space, and someone's already doing it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but yeah, it's not my favorite. So like faint would be nice, but
Yes.
like I find it sometimes it can be overpowering, and I know it's used a lot with soothing, like just
Yes,
sleep
and going to sleep
Yeah.
and rubbing it on your, like you can rub the oils on your feet to help go to sleep. It helps insomnia. It helps also with acne. Gosh, there's so many. Like there's actual, like in the oils we use too, has like a natural retinol. So all these things that, and it's one of those products. I was talking to Kindness Candles yesterday, Heather, and she's like, people just have to try the product. She was like, I'm hooked, or you're not hooked, but you don't know until you try it, right?
Yeah.
And so that's, being in the beauty industry is a little bit more tough. You're surrounded, right? You walk through a store. How do you choose?
Yeah.
How do you know?
And you don't know. Like, I mean, like it's when, even if you're talking about buying a car, you do your research, but do you really know? Like there's no way of knowing until you actually try something or buy a product and give it a try, right?
Yeah. So, and there are a lot of times when people come into the store and then all of a sudden they'll be like, oh, my daughter has shingles. And I'm like, here, take this. And they're like, well, no, I'll buy it. And I go, no, just take it. And they're like, and I go, oh, I can do what I want. Like, but just getting it in people's hands. And a big part of our business is customer service and doing that extra step. Like, we still, even with the volume, like I'm handwriting notes every order that goes out. It's a lot of times I'm packing them at 11 o'clock at night just to get them out for the next day. But that I never want to lose. So that's a tough one to maintain, because I see how people go, oh, I'm going to go to pre-printed thank you notes. I don't want to be there.
Yeah,
right. So, and as we grow, like we're up to 10 staff. So how do you hand over the stuff that you've touched?
Yeah.
Right. And you know what that's like.
I do. I made a face. You didn't see it on camera, but I literally made a face saying, handing things over. It's so difficult. But like, I don't know how to do that either myself.
Yeah.
Sometimes people have to kind of knock me.
It's tough because it's in your head.
Yeah.
And you've done it, and so to explain it, and then you don't have that extra time to manage that. So it's a tough.
Yeah. And you want to make sure it's been doing right. We've got about 1 minute left, and I
Yep.
just want to talk about, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
That's a great one, because I don't really do goals. I don't know, maybe stepping back a little bit where my kids take over a little bit more. I think that's where I am. I mean, we're across North America now, so I don't know.
I know it's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Aren't we supposed to have marketing plans? Yeah.
What?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a phenomenal journey that you've had, because, being in the corporate world, which I was for a short span of time, and, moving forward, and I used to do trade shows all over the world, and you're like, oh, now I've started my business that is this. And you have to make a decision as a business owner whether to keep it as this, go somewhere in between, or go bigger. But you've done an amazing job.
Well, thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining me, Julie, and telling
Thanks
me.
for having me.
It was my pleasure. And thank you for joining us, and don't go anywhere, because we'll be right back. And so we're still on screen. And this